Good, happy Tuesday morning, October 2020. I'm Riley King, and welcome to the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Tuesday morning, so let's begin. First up, we begin with COVID-19 updates. Coronavirus in New Hampshire, important information, latest graphs. Let's take a look at that right now. And here is a look at that for all of you right now, COVID-19 in New Hampshire. There are 9,746 number of people in New Hampshire have tested positive for COVID-19. 8,189,710 number of people in the United States have tested positive. 468 number of deaths from COVID-19 in New Hampshire. 761 number of people have been hospitalized with COVID-19 in New Hampshire. And 219,950 number of deaths from COVID-19 in the United States. Now let's take a look at this map of New Hampshire where current cases of COVID-19 are. Manchester, 121. Let's take a look at this map of New Hampshire where total cases of COVID-19 are. Manchester, 22291. And now let's take a look at these three charts here. Let's start with the first chart here. New cases each day in New Hampshire in the purple. Daily new positive COVID-19 cases. In orange, new hospitalization. In red, deaths. Let's take a look at this chart here. Current cases in the purple. Total current COVID-19 cases. And in the orange, current hospitalization. Let's take a look at this chart here. Total cases. In the purple, total positive COVID-19 cases. Orange, total hospitalization. Red, deaths. And blue, recovered. Now let's take a look at this chart here. Positive PCR test rate and daily PCR tests. Let's take a look at this chart here. Age group of cases, female and male of cases, and risk information. And let's take a look at this chart here. Infections, hospitalizations, and deaths. And let's take a look at this chart here. Deaths, percent of New Hampshire population, race/ethnicity of cases, and hospitalizations. And a reminder, your common symptoms: fever, lack of smell, cough, difficult breathing, chills, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. How it spreads, and prevention tips. And be sure to stay with the Riley King Network for the latest of your COVID-19 information. Police shoot man in Thornton. Officials say few details released. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Now's the time to get a great deal on select Kubota compact and subcompact tractors.
And we do begin tonight with breaking news out of Thornton, where the Attorney General's office says a man has been shot by police. Right now, investigators are not releasing his condition. And we do know no officers have been injured, and investigators say there is no threat to the public. Right now, officials are not releasing any other information, including exactly where this happened or what led up to the shooting. We are working to get those details, and we'll bring you more information as soon as we get it.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Sununu, Feltis, clash in governor's debate. Candidates spare over handling of COVID-19 pandemic, legislative records. The candidates for New Hampshire governor clashed early and often Monday night in a debate that focused largely on the state's response to COVID-19 pandemic, along with issues of race, justice, and climate change. Incumbent Republican Governor Chris Sununu is running for re-election against Democrat State Senator Majority Leader Dan Phelps. Sununu spent much of the debate highlighting the state's response to the pandemic, while Phelps was often on the attack, trying to tie Sununu to President Donald Trump and policies that Phelps said would hurt Granite State health care. Several times throughout the debate, Phelps asked Sununu whether he continued to think of himself as a Trump guy through and through, and whether he would be proud to vote for Trump. Sununu never responded to the question and instead focused on his administration's response to the pandemic. He wrote the playbook and did a good job as a team working with the Division of Public Health and the business to reopen and to have a successful summer, Sununu said. There are some restrictions we could put in place down the road, but we are far from where we were. We have done a great job, and there is no reason we cannot keep up the success. Phelps said he has the background to lead the state through the pandemic. For years, as a legal aid lawyer, I battled the health insurance industry to get access to health care for Granite State's working families, Phelps said. I did the same in the state Senate, delivering real results. Prescription drug relief, Medicaid expansion, working to expand health care across. That's what we've got to be focused on right now. Phelps accused Sununu of wanting to repeal the Affordable Care Act based on past statements the governor has made about the legislation. Governor Sununu, these are your own words. You run on a platform of repealing Obamacare, Phelps said. You said you supported Trump because he would finally end horrible programs like Obamacare. But Sununu said he has worked to defend the program. I am one of the Republican governors in the country actually fighting to keep the Affordable Care Act, Sununu said. New Hampshire is on the lawsuit today, fighting to keep the Affordable Care Act, bucking the trend. Sununu said the state's response to COVID-19 pandemic has been a model for the country. He said the state has worked well to keep hospitalizations low, even as cases have climbed back up in recent weeks. Phelps criticized the governor for venting and vetoing legislation that would have called for an independent review of how the spread of the virus was handled in long-term care facilities. But Sununu said the Department of Health and Human Services has done its own review, and the state has been transparent with its health data and aid expenditures. Phelps again tried to tie Sununu to President when talking about the state's guidance for reopening schools, while most of the state's reopening guidance had specific requirements and recommendations. The school guidance was much less direct outlining options for schools and putting the decision in the hands of local school districts. The biggest thing facing our schools, without question, is the lack of reopening public health standards, Phelps said. With 5 or 6 weeks to go before schools were going to reopen, people were expecting Governor Chris Sununu to actually lay forth some public health standards. He threw up his hands, punted it down to local level, just like Trump punted it down to local level on schools. Sununu pointed to the lack of outbreaks in schools as evidence that New Hampshire's approach has worked. The number one request of stakeholders was to make sure we have some flexibility, because what happens in third grade classrooms in Colebrook is very different than what's happening at Manchester Central High School, Sununu said. By providing that flexibility, what's the result? 85% of our schools are open in some fashion. We have no outbreaks. It's a huge success. The debate touched on racial strife that has been across the country in wake of police killings of unarmed black people. Sununu launched a commission after George Floyd was killed by police in Minneapolis, and he touted the findings of that commission, all of which he has endorsed. When the first Black Lives Matter protest was going to happen on the streets of Manchester, I picked up the phone and said, "We support you. We support you and the message. We will work with police," Sununu said. The result isn't just talk. The result has been allowing the Law Enforcement Accountability Commission to come together. Phelps again urged and used the issue as a way to tie Sununu to Trump, who has been criticized for his division rhetoric on issues of race. The senator also talked about his support for addressing disproportionate racial incarceration at state prisons. Systematic racism doesn't mean everyone in the system is racist. It means policing and policy and practices have a disappointing negative impact on community of color, Phelps said. So we need to look at the stance and look at the low-level novelist offenders and make sure that it's appropriate and make sure we do it in a common way. The two also speared over the issue of climate change and what the state is doing to address the problem. Phelps said the governor vetoed numerous bills on issues such as net metering that were intended to help encourage solar installations. We did agree on a couple of things, including Governor Sununu signed my bill to enable communities to do community aggression, unlock solar savings on communities, Phelps said. But he also vetoed 14 pieces of clean energy legislation, energy efficiency, clean energy solar distribution generation, net metering, and 3 net metering bills. In fact, all 3 had bipartisan support. So, this fundamental is not only a Democrat problem or a Republican problem. Quite frankly, the failure to move forward is a Chris Sununu problem. Sununu said he doesn't want the state to move forward with massive solar arrays, but instead target them to places such as mobile home parks and long-term care facilities. He said he has sought to balance the cost with benefits. There is a balance and solution to all of this, but it isn't just saying yes to everything and letting giant solar development companies take all the money, Sununu said. Manchester mask ordinance proposal goes to vote at Board of Aldermen and Mayor meeting. Vote scheduled to be presented to full board today. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Jessica Moran.
Chapel Tractor has been in our family since 1955, when great-grandfather Pearlie and our grandfather George decided.
We've been getting calls from constituents who are upset with people that are not respecting their liberty to not want people within their 6 feet.
I just really have a hard time with government just shoving this down people's throats.
With a vote of 3-2, Manchester's Committee on Administration Information Systems voting tonight to move a mask ordinance proposal to tomorrow's Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Alderman Pat Long voted in favor, but also put forth an amendment to get rid of any financial penalty. He says the ordinance is more about helping people who want the mask protection.
The penalty now is an education process, which maybe they'll listen to, maybe they won't, I don't know, and also offer them a mask.
Alderman at large Joseph Kelly Lavasser says the lack of ability to enforce the ordinance is part of why it shouldn't pass.
It just seems like something they're putting in to make themselves feel good. I don't know if it's more political.
Alderman Long agrees the ordinance isn't enforceable, but to those who say they don't want government involved at all,
the government tells us we should be doing a lot of things that I don't often agree with that we should be doing, but I comply because it's the law.
I respect businesses and I respect people's rights and their fears and safety, but I just don't believe the government should be involved in this matter.
And now the Manchester mask ordinance proposal will go in front of the full Board of Aldermen tomorrow. That will be a virtual meeting with Mayor Joyce Craig citing COVID-19 concerns with in-person meetings. In Manchester, Jessica Moran, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. LRG Healthcare filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Officials working to keep hospital open through potential deal with Concord Hospital. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Lakes Region General Healthcare, a fixture in healthcare in that area for more than 100 years that includes Lakes Region General Hospital, announced today they are filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
This is a bittersweet day because, believe me, we don't take pride or happiness in the fact that we filed bankruptcy, but we are happy about the fact that this will help us have a long-term solution to continue to meet the healthcare needs of our community.
Kevin Donovan says Lakes Region General Healthcare has struggled with debt for years, and the pandemic made things worse.
Things were tight pre-COVID, and as you can imagine, moving into the COVID-19 pandemic, things became even more extremely tight for us. And so without some kind of plan to address our debt long-term to find a partner, we would not be long-term sustainable.
Hospital officials stress that during this process, the doors to Lakes Region General Hospital will remain open, and it will have no impact on patients or staff. The same will hold true for Franklin Regional Hospital and their associated care providers. Donovan says they employ about 1,400 people in their 2 hospitals and 20 other care providers. He says there is already an offer on the table to purchase their assets and stay operational, but that will still have to go to an open bid in December as part of the bankruptcy process.
We'll see patients in our outpatient centers. We will see patients in the emergency room. We will perform surgeries. We will do all that work that we currently do.
and that will be uninterrupted.
Hospital officials say the entire process will not conclude until sometime next year. In Laconia, Andy Hirschberger, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Police investigate threatening letters sent to Trump supporters. Letters sent to people with Trump campaign signs in yards. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Tim Callery.
Now's the time to get a great deal on select Kubota compact and subcompact tractors.
Dear neighbor, you have been identified by our group as being a Trump supporter.
This is the letter mailed to the home of Kelly, a Milford resident who wished to be identified only by her first name.
Your address has been added into our database as a target for when we attack should Trump not concede the election.
The anonymous author goes on to say they hope Kelly's home insurance has fire coverage.
I was very taken back.
Milford police say this same letter was mailed to other homes that have signs supporting President Trump. The department is now investigating and has contacted the Attorney General's office.
This is my home. You know, you're not supposed to threaten my home. So yeah, I'm very put off. I'm very worried in the sense that, you know, this is going on in my town.
But it's not just Milford. 2 people in Brookline also received a letter.
I was kind of quite shocked that anybody would send a letter out with that type of threat.
Police Chief Bill Quigley alerted the U.S. Postal Inspection Service and says whoever is behind the letters could face serious charges.
Not only with us, with criminal threatening, and it's on a felony level because of the threat of burning homes down and causing injury, but it can also be with the postal inspectors, something on the federal level.
And Kelly says she really wanted to share this story to encourage other people who may have received this letter to come forward and contact their local authorities. Reporting in Milford, I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Airport numbers improve, but still trail well behind last year. Manchester airport officials say more federal help needed. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9, Kristen Carosa.
Chapel Tractor has been in our family since 1955, when great-grandfather Pearlie and our grandfather George.
Back in April, the fewest passengers the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport saw in a day was 84. Yesterday, more than 1,000 people were screened.
We're responding very well in terms of our recovery. We're right around 35% of our pre-COVID activity levels, which is much higher than when we talked last time.
But their numbers, the director says, will not allow the airport to survive long term. In the meantime, they've cut expenses.
Right now, it's obviously reduced revenues for the airport, but we've done a great job with cutting our operating expenditures, finding savings where we can. For example, we closed down Lot C, which reduces the need for the shuttle buses, but also insurance on the parking lot. We've been able to find about $2.5 million worth of cost savings. But also the CARES Act money has certainly helped, and much appreciation to all of our federal delegation for their efforts in getting that money for all of aviation.
The airport has received roughly $12.1 million in financial aid, and right now they're awaiting more money from the federal government.
The airports and aviation are in both the HEALS Act and the HEROES Act that various chambers down in Washington, D.C. have both respectively passed, but they haven't passed on an agreed-upon bill yet. If we don't get additional funding, then it's going to be something that is going to hurt aviation in the long run.
As they wait for more assistance, they want to ensure travelers it's safe to fly.
I think the airlines, having put in effective protocols, face masks, all those type of public health safety measures, has certainly impacted in a positive way the safety of aircraft.
Reporting in Manchester, Kristen Carosa, WMUR News 9.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And thank you for watching this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. I'll have a news report coming up in a little bit. Goodbye, everyone.